10, 9, 8, 7, 6, 5, 4, 3, 2, 1.
All systems go.
You're listening to Sudbury News Talk.
I want to show you something.
Stand by.
On the morning shift.
Anything
Could happen.
Sudbury News Talk on the morning shift.
And good morning, everyone. Welcome to Sudbury News Talk on the morning shift. I'm AJ Walsh. Glad to be here with you. Thankful that you're here with us. We're live on CKLU 96.7 FM on the radio, cklu.ca on the internet. We're also streaming live to, facebook.com/Sudbury News and youtube.com/Sudbury News. Make sure to like, share, subscribe, and follow the channel and the page. Although the page, speaking of Facebook, although we're streaming live to it, it cannot be seen in Sudbury, in Ontario, or in Canada. But it is being seen everywhere else around the world. So I figured we might as well still stream to it because we do have an audience that joins us from around the world and they want to see what goes on in Canada and in Ontario and in Sudbury, right? So why deprive them of the opportunity of, kind of checking in if they're thinking of moving here or they're from here and they want to check in? Well, they can do it. Now, the federal government's policies prohibits news from being put on Facebook by any news outlet. They're not allowed to have a Facebook page. If you go to any news outlet's Facebook page, it says, due to government policies, yada, yada, can't have anything there. And you're not even allowed to share other news. You can't have any news on Facebook, the world's largest social media platform. It's the only country in the world that has Facebook that is not allowed to share news on it. That should tell you something. What? I'll leave that up to you. But anyways, we're also going to be found on demand on YouTube after the show, along with x.com/Sudbury News and Sudbury.news, which is our news aggregator. So make sure to go on YouTube for sure and subscribe, because that's where we're found in Canada and in Sudbury for the moment until we get on some other social media platforms due to being outed by someone who complained to Facebook to get us removed. And there's people out there who've been emailing me and messaging me as to who these people could very well be, and I think they're on to something. So, and that's probably who we're going to be talking about this morning. But let's just check in. We're just going to check in with a little bit of weather before we begin with our special guest that we have waiting in the green room, and we'll leave that as a little surprise for everybody. Currently, it's minus 17 degrees. It feels like minus 25. It's very cold. We can expect flurries today, ending this morning, and then cloudy with a 40% chance of flurries, local amount 2 centimeters. Wind moderate, not very much at all. And then wind chill will be 24 this morning and minus 16. Minus 24, minus 16 this afternoon, minus 24 in the morning. Partly cloudy tonight, becoming cloudy before morning. Wind moderate again. Low of minus 22, wind chill minus 20 this evening and minus 29 overnight. So again, risk of frostbite, very cold. And then tomorrow, everyone's favorite F word, flurries and wind moderate, minus 14, wind chill minus 30 in the morning and minus 17 in the afternoon, risk of frostbite as well because the low will be minus 24. And then again, like I said, yesterday's forecast promised sun on Wednesday, Thursday, Friday, and Saturday, and already we see Wednesday is a few flurries, minus 14. Thursday's sunny with a high of minus 17, and Friday's a mix of sun and cloud with a high of minus 10, minus 9 and sunny on Saturday, and then minus 6, 40% chance of flurries on Sunday, partly cloudy on Monday with a high of -6. So again, it didn't last. I knew that we wouldn't get 4 days of unadulterated sun, and I was right. And we have a few people joining us already on YouTube, as we usually do as we kick off the show. But because we have a special guest joining us from the green room that we want to get to, who's had some issues as of late, and you might have seen her on Facebook talking about those things. And we had her on the show before. She was running for mayor in the last municipal election, and it's Miranda Rocca Circelli. And I think I pronounced your name correct. If I didn't, you let me know.
You did perfect.
There you go. I remembered. So tell us a little bit about the people that don't remember you being on the show way back when. And, you ran for mayor. So just give everybody a little background of yourself. Then we'll get into the issue that you kind of...
The nitty-gritty?
The nitty-gritty of the issue that you're kind of finding yourself in these days.
Yeah, no, that sounds wonderful. Thank you for having me. And I will say I am sorry that you are no longer on Facebook. It is an unfortunate side of living where we live. And it is hard to have a voice when your voice is being, shrunken in many ways and hidden. You're here to do good, to report on what's going on in the community, and it's hard to do those things when there's constant barriers. And so I can appreciate the frustrations with that, because you work hard, you volunteer your time, you put this together to keep the public informed, and you're utilizing a platform for what it's there for, which is to communicate with the world. And then so to be, removed is incredibly frustrating and upsetting. It really is.
Wow, you summed that up very well, Miranda. Thank you very much.
It's you're out here doing that tireless work, that philanthropic work in many ways, where I listen to your show, and I think it's important to cover all issues, right? We shouldn't be biased in the issues we cover, and to be penalized for that publicly is really there's many words I can use to describe it. It's happened to me in different occasions in different ways. And, when you're stonewalled, when you're just trying to use your voice to help create safer, healthier, better environments, and just really create awareness so people can make better decisions or different decisions in their life that work for them, it really does make you question. And it leaves a lot up to interpretation to what is really going on in this world. We can't say that this is a free world when there's these types of barriers put on us. And again, especially when you're doing this for the good of others, you're not doing this for yourself in many ways. Waking up early, volunteering your time. This is, it's like being a parent. It's tireless, thankless work. When you're constantly, stonewalled, it doesn't make it any easier. So I'm sorry you're dealing with that. And thank you for having me on.
No problem.
At least you don't have to worry about me being the reason you're removed.
Oh, for sure. No, exactly. I think Tom Price and Bob Johnson took responsibility for that one. They kept saying, sorry.
No, that's all good. So thank you for having me on. What I'll try to do is I'll try to be as concise as I can, because I don't want to get into this. There's so many layers, unfortunately, to the point where it's made me, quite ill. Like this morning, I had a really hard time, and I was like, no, I'm not going to cancel. And I've just never felt as ill as I did, just from dealing with all this trauma, right? And so every time having to show up and tell the story again, people think it's an easy thing. And I love, being on camera, telling my story. But the truth is, I would much rather be doing other things than this. And it's really taken away from my well-being. So in a nutshell, if I can put it in a nutshell, and I also have a documentary on YouTube to capture a little bit more about what has transpired for people, if they want to hear the full story. But what happened was, so I was renting a unit from Panoramic Properties for 8 years, same unit, 8 years. And on October 21st, I work from home. So I was sitting at my desk, and I received a notice under my door that they would need to come in the next day to do, to take a look at a valve. So I assumed that valve was a valve that I have in my living space, in my living room. And so the next day came, October 22nd, and I had left my condo. I hadn't come back till about just after 1 p.m. And when I came back to the building, I got to my door. And before I entered my door, I thought it was really weird, because I could see these two white footprints outside of my door, like these two white, what they look like Adidas shoes, like Gazelle, because I have kids, so I kind of have familiar with certain things. So I see these 2 white footprints outside my door, and I thought, this is odd. And I look at my door, and there's a letter jammed in it, little note. And the note was from Panoramic Properties, and it said, sorry, we missed you. They've completed the work. There was no indication that I had to call back or that they were coming back. So I thought, okay, this is weird. So I cautiously kind of opened the door. And as I open the door, I see this giant ladder just kind of dangling on the wall. So it's closed, but it's on just like 1 foot. And I have pictures for all this. So and also everything I'm mentioning, it's all documented. I know people like to criticize, but everything I'm saying is completely, there's documentation to support everything I'm saying.
And in today's day and age, very,
me.
very wise to do that. It's wise to do that in any day and age, but today especially,
Absolutely.
For sure. Yeah.
And it's daunting because it does become a full-time job, and that's part of why most people aren't successful in these kind of pursuits in a way, because it's a full-time job. To document everything and anything is a full-time job, and it's incredibly exhausting, and most people don't have the resources or the know-how. So thank you. So I documented everything. So I see this ladder, and I thought, oh my God, like someone must be in here. So of course I shout out as a woman, I'm going in a space by myself, and I'm cautious. And so no one's answering. So I cautiously go in. I go towards my bedroom, and I see the blinds fully open. So I'm on ground level. Everyone can see into my bedroom. And I've had reported safety concerns just from things on the street and that over the years. So I was very specific that, there was safety concerns in that area. Anyway, so blinds wide open. I go in my room, and I see these 5 holes with these panels. And they're all right beside my bed and above my bed. So like if I'm sleeping and I turn my head, I would be facing it and it would be above me. So I was just shocked. I was like, what happened here? No one was even supposed to be in here until the afternoon. So how did people come in here and do all this work? And so I wasn't given the lawful entry. I wasn't given the 24-hour notice. That was not 24-hour notice. And so I was confused. So I called the main office, the Panoramic Properties main office. And of course, I got the receptionist, and I'm explaining to her what happened. And she said, okay, I'll get someone to call you. And I said, well, this is pretty serious. There's immediacy here. So time went on, no answer. I call her back. Same thing. Oh, someone will get to you. And I said, well, can I talk to the property manager? Oh, they'll get back to you. So then I call the main office in Niagara Falls because I'm not getting a response, and this ladder also is going to fall. Like it's just dangling, and I don't want to be a casualty. I don't want someone else to be a casualty. And what the hell's going on? And as of course, time's going on, I'm looking around, and I'm seeing that everything in my room is covered in drywall dust. And I'm a girly girl. I have, an external clothing rack. I have external shoe racks. I have makeup tables. Everything was covered in drywall. And if you know drywall, it's a very fine dust, and it gets, you can almost not even see it, but the minute you touch it so everything's covered, and I'm just losing it because I'm like, what is going on? I had private stuff places, like I anticipated them to come within the 24 hours, right? So
and how much time has gone by at this point again?
So they dropped it off October 21st at about 12:21 p.m. because I looked at the clock, and of course, when you notice, synchronistic times, you're kind of like, oh, interesting. So I don't know what time specifically they entered at, but I got back to my condo. I left that night, and I got back at my condo at around just after 1 p.m. So for them to have made these 5 whole, they were in there much earlier than the 24 hours. And so I called the Niagara Falls. They connect me to the accounts receivable person. They don't have HR. They don't have health and safety. So the accounts receivables on the phone with me, and I'm explaining to her what happened, how intrusive, like who gave the approval for this? And
really, what would accounts receivable have anything to do with this?
I was so confused, right? Because I'm like, where's your HR? So she starts getting frustrated, and then she tells me to call the tenants board to have the ladder removed. And I'm like, so-and-so, you'd like me to call the tenants board to have this ladder removed? And she just kind of glitched and was like, didn't know how to answer. And then the call ended. And I was like, wow, okay, so this is what I'm dealing with. So then I call the property manager. I leave a message, no answer. In the meantime, I had also called the third-party company because there was a third-party company and there was Panoramic employee in there doing this. And I also found out that this work was done by unqualified workers. So, I mean, there's so much to this. It's hard to get to it all.
Wow.
But through the Ministry of Labor, my understanding is, and I'm waiting for the formal report, that so all their workers had to get qualified in basic workplace training. So working at heights, confined, especially when you're doing construction work and you're on work sites. So I had, complained about obviously the damage. I have not received any kind of anything. So I've lost, I can't even tell you how much stuff. Obviously it's all listed. And then, so the ladder situation was another thing where no one was coming to get the ladder. And now nightfall was coming, right? And I'm like, either this ladder is going to fall in the middle of the night, and it was it was in the hallway to my bathroom and in front of my closet. So I'm like, I have to move this or it's going to fall. So, you hear all the keyboard warriors out there. Well, you touched it. And even the lawyer accused me of, the ladder fell because I touched it. I've developed the curriculum for working at heights with the ministry. I'm very aware of ladder safety, and that ladder needed to be placed on the ground so it did not fall on me or anyone, my children. So I moved it. And of course, in that moment, I thought I could lift it. But that ladder, you're talking over 10-foot ladder that weighs probably close to, 200 pounds. And it fell on me. So I still haven't heard from Panoramic. No incident report, no check-in, nothing. So at the end of the day, the major issue was that they came in unlawfully and they exposed a fire suppression system that had been buried behind my wall for 8 years. Okay. Now, because I wasn't getting any information, no one was getting back to me despite the damage, despite the ladder, despite everything. So I investigated myself and I reached out to the fire service department, Greater Sudbury Fire Service Department, because I thought, well, they must know what this is. They must have a better understanding. They must have documented reports, because in order to have occupancy and all these things, like I know the codes and all this stuff, right? So fire services comes to my unit. I won't get into the minutia and the details of very interesting things that were said. I will say their voices were raised to me. They didn't do an inspection. They seemed incredibly bothered. And it was, again, I'm a woman. I'm in my private quarters. Like, my whole life has been destroyed. I'm not getting answers from Panoramic Properties. I'm doing all this on my own, trying to figure out what's going on. Like, I can't sleep here when there's this giant pipe that's been beside my head this whole time. I've never known. But now on the other side of it, so it's the fire suppression system. So if there's ever a fire in the building, fire services have to directly hook up to this pipe. There's two external, and I have pictures for all this. There's that's where the hoses hook up to. Okay, so just like a fire hydrant type of situation. So I knew this was a major thing, because I'm like, I've been living here for 8 years. This has never been tested. So fire services comes in, again, raise their voice, rude. So I asked the individual, I said to them, so if this has been buried for 8 years, has it been inspected? Has it been certified? Has it been? And he said to me, no, they didn't know where it was. And I said, well, how can that be an excuse to compromise people's safety? Like, there's fire service plans, there's business, like building plans, there's all these things that this doesn't make sense to me. And he said, well, they just had to locate it and they're coming back to inspect it. And I said, but I was told, based on the documentation, that Panoramic was done. They don't have to come back, like all these things. So it was just this confusing. So then as he was leaving, I said to him, can you document what you said to me? And he looked at me and he said, no. And I was like, well, wait a second. I just need this documented. Like, I have open cases with the tribunal, with the Ministry of Labor, with, all these agencies. I said, I need documentation. I mean, you're the expert, right? He said, no, you can research it yourself. The codes are NFP 24 and NFP 25. So National Fire Codes, right? And I was like, oh, wait a second. He's like, yeah, I'll wait for you to get a pen. I'm like, okay. So I literally wrote it on the notice that Panoramic gave me, because that's the paper I had. So I write down, okay, NFP 24, NFP 25. Okay. And he's like, yeah, that's it. So I literally just shut the door, because I'm like, this is not professional in any way. Also, the way they spoke to me, all of it. So I researched the codes. You can research them yourself. So NFP 24, NFP 25. So those systems have to be flow tested every 5 years, inspected annually. They also have to communicate with the fire service. So Panoramic has to communicate with the fire services, who has to have a copy of everything. So if they're going in to do inspections, if they're going in to do work on it, if they're going, all these things have to be required. To this day, I have not received documentation, and I've placed an FOI. So I placed an FOI, and the evidence that I got from the fire services, they didn't give me all their evidence, which included email conversations between us. So evidence that I had, just because we were conversing, they didn't even give those. And by law, you have to give all the documentation that I'm requesting. They did not. And to this day, they have not provided me with anything saying that that system is certified, compliant, and to code. It could be, but all they have to do is provide me with this certification document, which they have not done. And so this is escalated. So then I went to the bylaw, triggered the bylaw. All of it is documented, including the conversation of how I was yelled at, how I was the bother, how the bylaw officer was taking the hearsay of Panoramic Properties versus the documentation I had given him, and was making decisions based on that, and then raising his voice at me like I was the problem and saying that, well, you're not letting them into the unit. And I said, no, I'm letting them into the unit as long as they provide a lawful notice of entry. And so the notices of entry started to get, in my opinion, shadier and shadier, where now all of a sudden the Panoramic logo was no longer there. There were no names on the document. It was coming from Niagara Falls. So they were trying to come into my unit, but in really, really shady ways, where I was like, hold on. I have questions like, who's coming in my unit? What are they coming in to do? And I was completely entitled to ask those questions, because based on my documentation, the people who had initially come in and destroyed everything weren't even qualified to be in there. They didn't even have the proper training based on what I understand, right? So again, if there's documentation to disprove what I'm saying, that's how these things work. Okay, maybe I'm wrong, and I can be wrong. However, I have not been given any documentation.
And all this started, right? You just came home and you saw these footprints and whatever. You didn't even know anyone was in your unit. And then you go into your bedroom, which is the most intimate place anyone could have. And that's where all this is exposed. So they didn't even tell you in the first place they were coming. So you had to then phone around and say, what's going on here? There's holes in my wall, whatever. Yeah. So now you're trying to find this. So right from the beginning, and I know I've been a property manager before, they need to give you notification before they come in.
And proper.
Right?
Right?
You,
like they
you
did
need
give
to
me
agree
notification,
with it.
but they weren't specific to say, one, that they were going to be doing what they were doing. And even if you go into something, you notice, okay, we're going to be putting these massive holes above and beside this. And also, like, I will say, there was drywall in my private drawers. There's no reason that drywall should have been in the places it was. Like, again, as a woman, incredibly vulnerable. And on top of that, the same individual that was in there a few weeks after that intimidated me in the hallway. And I documented it and I reported it to Panoramic. Yeah, he stared me down. He grazed past me. And I'm thinking, this man was just in my private room. Yeah. It just, and I never got a response. So the city stuff, though, once it was escalated to the bylaw, again, the bylaw, in my opinion, acted in ways that were unacceptable. They were taking the hearsay. It was very biased. And all this is documented. And the way he spoke to me on the phone, and I called him out and I said, so you didn't look at my evidence and you just took the hearsay of Panoramic. And he said, yeah, I guess if I'd looked at your evidence, my decisions would have been different. And I thought, I conduct investigations for a living. I conduct workplace investigations. I couldn't imagine like the liability in that alone, right? So, and I should add on top of that, when I was talking to the fire service individuals, I got passed on. I went through 4 of them. They kept passing me on because they didn't want to answer my emails. And I got yelled at on the phone. I got told to do my own homework, that they're not here to do my homework and my research when I asked them what codes they were referenced to say that the system was allowed to be non-compliant but compliant. It was insane to me how I was spoken to, how I was treated, and I escalated it all the way up to the CAO and the mayor. Okay, so the last correspondence I had went to the mayor's office, the councillors, and the CEO.
So how did that go?
To no avail. The mayor told me in an official letter, which I have, and again, everyone, it's all documented. The file's quite large. And he said to me, if to work with the CAO. And that was right after I had just received an email from the CAO saying, oh, you don't live there anymore, which I chose to leave my unit because clearly it wasn't safe. I hadn't been able to stay there since October 22nd, since that pipe and the drywall. And I still paid rent up until I left because, again, so many layers. I went into Panoramic in November and I encountered the owner. And this is documented. Everything's completely documented.
So the owner of Panoramic, the owner, not just the manager. Okay, wow.
No, the owner. And it was an interesting conversation. And in that conversation, he had told me, well, if the place wasn't to par, then maybe I shouldn't pay rent and leave. And I looked at him and I said, so you want me to not pay rent so you can evict me? You're telling me not to pay rent. You know this is the unit's not to par. So it's just, and then another thing he had said, so there was a camera that was installed. It had been installed, and I have when it was installed because I lived there for 8 years, right? It wasn't there when I moved in. It's the only camera in the entire common areas of the building. And it has a direct line of sight into my unit. And I have pictures of that, right? And I sent this to the lawyer and I had asked them, I said, listen, I want to know the view. Yeah. I want to know when it was installed and why it was installed. Of course, I got denied. Oh, it's safe. It can't see in your room. I said, there's a picture right here. Look at you. You can see directly. And then there were things that they were saying and doing that I just thought, this is interesting. Like, how are you knowing this, right? So there were just little nuances that, again, you pay attention and you clue into. And so when I saw Angelo that day and I said to him, I haven't been able to bring my kids into this unit because it's not safe. He said to me, well, I haven't seen your kids in your unit. And I was like, as a mother, I was just like,
That's
what?
interesting. That's like,
and this is documented, right?
Yeah.
So I'm just like, okay, so I'm asking you guys to provide no documentation saying the field of view to confirm, don't worry, and nothing, right? And again, I could be wrong, but I have not received any documentation or anything that will say, so I can't tell you the system's certified because I don't have documentation to say it's certified. And much like a car, you can't have a car appraised or certified without doing the whole thing. You can't just do parts of it and say, oh, it's good to go. That's a major safety concern. There are people living in that building, right? On top of this, as I've been public with this for my own safety, because I've had a lot of things happen, which again, just making sure that I'm transparent and safe so people are aware. And so because of this, I've had so many people reach out to me. I've had workers, past tenants, past contractors. I have had immigrants from other country reach out to me and tell me the working conditions that they were subjected to. I've had past employees confirm a lot of what I have shared publicly and said, yeah, people weren't qualified when we were there. We were told that it takes too much time to qualify people and train them. And all of this is documented. People have said, hey, please use this statement in your case. Like, hey, I was a tenant. This is what happened to me. Please use this statement in your case. So I have people who have come out and as much as it's encouraging and supporting, it's really hard to hear people's stories because it's traumatizing. It's traumatizing to see how people are being treated in this community, both by people who've shared their stories about Panoramic, people who've shared their stories about bylaw, people who've shared their stories with the city. I mean, I went to the mayor and the mayor said, oh, you have a problem with the CAO? Deal with the CAO. CAOs tell me, oh, case is closed. You don't live there.
Yep.
I have FOIs in. I've gotten, so it's you follow the due diligence and the processes that are laid out before you, only to be stonewalled and gaslit and told, you're making this up. But I know I'm not, because I have this confirmation from so many people in the community.
So this unfortunate, situation that you find yourself in, it just what's going on is you're doing an audit of the whole, the whole
yep.
Industry, I guess you can say, of landlords and tenants and how the city deals with that, and then all of the regulations, if they're being covered or not. You're basically doing an external audit.
And it's been a full-time job. It's been consuming. And the thing is, when you know other people are dealing with similar issues, and when the mayor of the city says, oh, if you have an issue, just go back, like, talk about re-victimizing, talk about lack of trauma understanding, trauma-informed training, talk about you're telling the victim to go back to the alleged perpetrator. And so in the middle of all this, what I forgot to mention is that, so I had launched these investigations with the Auditor General. So the Auditor General was currently investigating the fire services and the bylaw. And I'd spoken to him, like, we had conversations. He was collecting my evidence. It was in the process. He told me he would have the report from the fire services ready for me December 31st. Guess what?
Oh, I know what happened.
The Auditor General's gone.
Oh, that was convenient.
Convenient. And where are my files? So, of course, asking the CEO, okay, so who's taking over the third-party investigation of these files? To the mayor, I'd like to know the timeline. Who's taking over the third-party investigation?
Well, they said in the news conference or whatever, in the press release, that accountability is still going to be, it's going to be at its highest level. They're going to make sure they're the most accountable, even though we don't have an Auditor General anymore. They're just following suit with other municipalities. And so you have nothing to worry about. So obviously you have nothing to worry about. They're gonna take care of this now, right?
This is how good they are. They're so good that they
don't
send
need
you
it.
back to the alleged perpetrator to deal with your issue, who then tells you that the case is closed. That's how accountable they are now. And again, I'm speaking from my own personal experience. There's zero accountability. There is zero transparency. There's zero ethics. There's zero trauma, compassion. There is zero victim compassion. I can go on and on and on. And I am a professional leadership consultant. I've been doing this for 20 years. I develop leadership programs. I've coached people in every walk of life. You don't need to be a leadership professional to know that this is unethical. It is demoralizing, you name it, how I've been treated. And I mean, I am a regular citizen, but like you said, I ran for mayor. Like, I have a public footprint, right? And I have a public profile, and I carry credibility. I carry academic, and this is how I'm treated. So for me, this is so incredibly important. You know, there's obviously a piece for me that is philanthropic and just really wants to help people and serve the public. And that's why I do put myself in the public. I've started a nonprofit in the past. I started Greater Sudbury Basketball Association, and that came out of, similar situations. And most people in life don't pay attention to things until they directly impact them.
Correct.
And not having an Auditor General, having bylaw department that treats people the way I got treated, to have fire services treat people the way I got treated, to have a mayor and a CAO, this is not okay. And so, in light of this, I do have something exciting, because I am a very solutions-based type of person, where it's like,
is this an exclusive announcement that you're going to make on this show?
Just for you, because I think this is the perfect place for that type of announcement.
Cool.
And so I'm in the process of creating a nonprofit, and the nonprofit is called SudburyCIA.ca. You can check it out. It is live. We're still working on the kinks. And so right now, it stands for Sudbury Citizen Integrity Alliance.
Nice.
And it's to replace the arm of the Auditor General in this city. It's a nonprofit. We're currently building our board of directors. So there's a call out right now that I'm going to be making publicly to acquire more board of director members. Once we have a board of directors and establish our bylaws, you can go on the website. You can take a look at the process, the policies that we currently have in terms of how we'd like this to run. And so the idea is that we are the wrongdoing hotline now, because there isn't one. You can virtue signal, and you can superficially say, yeah, it's still there. The phone number is still there. But like, once you call, who's on the other line and what's going to happen? And I know what happened to me. Zero resolution, zero again. So in light of this, and knowing that while I was capable, and again, my files at the tribunal, the evidence will speak for itself when it comes to Panoramic. There are other avenues that I will be taking as well. But I think it's really important that first something like this is placed in a public arena, so that other people who are struggling, and I know there are so many people, and again, just to hear how tenants, from my understanding, have been treated, people need support and they need direction. So for me, this is an opportunity to help create a safe space for people to be heard and seen. And while we can't investigate every complaint, and there will be a vetting process, this is a way to say, hey, you know what? Let's take a look at this in an unbiased way. Let's do the investigation. Let's do the audit to the best of our ability, and then create a report that maybe then we lobby to the ombudsman, we lobby to other government agencies, because there are government agencies out there. The challenge is when you're an individual, and much like you probably see online, people start personalizing it. They start attacking your character. And that's another thing I spoke to. And I'll be honest, demographically, it has been majority of men who have been demeaning, who have said horrible things, slanderous. And there's also, like, you know, much like what you're dealing with, people behind the scenes, right? And people think that because they're online and they click that they're anonymous, that they truly are anonymous. But we live in a digital age. And so, you know, there's been a few profiles that I believe belong to the same person. And I'm just in the process of collating some information to determine this. Again, just constant investigations. Who's chosen to slander me on a landlord's Facebook page. And I'm grateful for all the supporters out there who are calling me, who are vigilant out there, who are saying, hey, Miranda, this is happening. Hey, Miranda, this is happening. Like, to have people stand up for you and what you're doing when you're not there is probably like the greatest piece of integrity I think any human being can have, because I don't know half the people who are standing up for me, but in many ways I'm sure they've been wronged, and here they are, and they need a place to go, and they see someone who is standing up. Is this easy? No. Is this consuming? Yes. Like I said, is it affecting my health? Like, a ladder fell on me. I'm still dealing with the impacts of that, the trauma from this. It's all been a lot. And I'm just grateful that I'm able to do this, that I've been able to educate myself, resource myself, and this has been part of my life's purpose, to help others. So Sudbury CIA is, I think, going to be something that people are going to rely on, because, again, it's an unbiased look of doing the investigation, taking that report, and then instead of individualizing things, you at least have an organization that's supporting you, that's saying, hey, we're going to help you escalate this. We're going to escalate it for you with your support, and we're going to go through this process together. Because I know, like, I just spoke to, another past tenant of theirs who went through the process, and it's exhausting. And most people get so tired emotionally that they give up. But because of the work I do with emotional, healing and trauma and leadership, I've had to do that work so I can stand strong. And a lot of people think that, I have all these people. Like, I am doing this quite independently. And I'm doing it for the community. I'm doing it for my kids, and I'm doing it for myself, right? So I hope a lot of people reach out. I hope we get a lot of people who want to be part of this, because this is not how you run a community. And I don't care if there's only 4 municipalities in Ontario. We are the hub of Northern Ontario. And all the municipalities that do have an Auditor General are the ones that are major municipalities. We are a major municipality. We are also the cross point of a lot of horrible things that happen in the north too. So we need oversight. And when your mayor is telling you to go back to, again, the person that you're alleging is the perpetrator, there is no accountability. And so there needs to be accountability. And if it's going to be up to the citizens, unfortunately, public servants seem to have gotten things twisted. They're supposed to serve us, the citizens. I'm not sure when the story got twisted, but I didn't get served as a citizen. I got stonewalled. I got all these other things. So here I am building this organization, SudburyCIA.ca, and I really hope that people come out and just support this mission, because I'm telling you, if it's not today, it will be tomorrow that you will need to go to the city with a question, a comment, or concern, and you are not going to like how you're treated.
No, and this is great, Miranda. We just have to wrap things up just because it's time now, and time goes by so fast when the show's on.
Sorry.
No, don't be sorry. It's perfect the way it wrapped up. I just want to kind of sum everything up and just thank you for having to go through this, which brought you to this. Sometimes it's challenges that bring us to doing something that's needed, and it's needed. Now, everything is in cycles, and we find that, we've had, you go through devastation, and then you build out of the ashes, and then everybody knows what corruption and people that have too much power and when everyone doesn't have their freedoms that they need to have, it ends up with the few that are leading the many, and absolute power corrupts absolutely. And you see that trend going on in the world right from the top. Mark Carney just announced his partnership with China, somehow is ushering in the new world order, whatever that means. He was asked by,
Yes, I saw that.
right? He was asked by the mainstream
There's
media.
just so much to interpret, right? And it shouldn't
for
be
sure.
like that. Be clear, concise. Like, you can't use terms like that and think that people are going to take it and run with it and make assumptions.
Yeah.
What does it mean is
That's
based
right.
on what we know it means. So be clear, right?
And when he was asked, he was ambiguous and didn't really answer the question very clearly. And so we're still left wondering exactly what he meant by that. But the point I'm trying to make is that they're making it their world. It's not for the people. It's the people at the top. And our provincial government just gave the mayors of our communities special
stronghold.
King powers. Like they're just going to be the kings of the community. So we
saw that just now.
That's right.
At this point, he gave, our mayor gave power in a letter that he gave to the CEO to remove who she wants. But you can't do that. It's still against bylaws.
So now it forces us as citizens to take back the power. So then the cycle starts all over. So they're going to go as far as they can to take as much power as they can, the people at the top, the few people. And then the rest of the people wake up from their apathy and go, wait a minute, this doesn't work. And
it'll be too late.
That's usually happens. That's what usually happens. But at least we can do what we can in the meantime. And I hope part of the Sudbury CIA includes a financial audit of the city somehow by a volunteer, someone who's qualified, who has the resume.
That is the plan, right?
Yeah,
Audits of all sorts, and
for
I
sure,
think,
yes,
all financial, social,
that's
all
right.
of it.
Kind of like you just did. You did an audit of the processes
That's right.
of the city in terms of landlord and tenant. And you're continuing to do that. So all the best for that. And let's check in at some point and see how you're doing. I'd love to be involved with the Sudbury CIA, even if it's to just kind of get the word out there through the show. Okay.
That is a very strong position. So thank you for having me.
Thank you, Miranda. Miranda Rocca Shircelli was our guest today. Thank you very much, Miranda, for being on. Sorry you had to go through what you had to go through, but it's going to end up to be more positive for more people because of that. Stay tuned now for Earshot Daily on CKLU 96.7 FM. Remember to like, share, take care, and ciao for now. We'll be back same time, same place on the same platforms, God willing. Ciao, everyone.
This is Sudbury News Talk on the morning shift.